Hey guys, it's Reno. Welcome to my studio. Today we're going to be going through my studio setup as well as my backgrounds, and I'm going to show you how you can achieve the same kind of thing without it costing an arm and a leg, because apparently that's the key word nowadays. And I'm going to be using myself as a model because I don't have access to much else. So stay tuned. These are the lights that I use. This is Link Star. I got them from Studio 22 in Cape Town. Had them shipped up here and I've never had a single day's worth of trouble with these lights. They have taken thousands upon thousands upon thousands of photos. I am super happy with these. They come standard with the softbox. I traded out one of the soft boxes for an umbrella. I just wanted a little bit more crispness in one of my side lights. I just felt that in my studio setup the two soft boxes were just a little bit too soft in that regard, but never had a single complaint about these lights at all. I've also heard a lot of people who work with Godox who are very happy with them, but you can also even go for a cheaper option if you are looking for a studio setup. Looking at something at Outdoor Photo, you can put together a continuous lighting kit. Two lights you'd be able to pick up for around 1,500 Rand. If you don't even have that budget, you can literally slice it in half, get one light, between 700 and 800 Rand for one continuous light. Most of the time I use only one light in any case in my photos. You could do a heck of a lot with just one light, so that's something you can consider, but this is what I use and I'm super happy with it. This is my white backdrop. I decided not to go the vinyl route when I just started out with photography. I did not feel like paying 1,500 to 2,000 Rand just so I could get a white background. So instead what I did was I went to Shamdor. I got this piece of material. I think I picked it up for around 500 bucks. It is 7 meters by 3 meters wide. It is more than enough material on backdrop than I have ever needed, and in fact there's still a heck of a lot of material at the back here that I still haven't even touched. So if I wanted to, I could still cut this piece off on the floor, replace it with that on the back, and I still have a complete new full backdrop. I did however go out and spend on a backdrop stand. At the time I started out, I did not feel like dealing with any lawsuits of any like wonky backdrops falling over on people, so I made sure that I got a good sturdy backdrop stand. I think it was about 1,700 Rand from Photo First if I can remember correctly, but in retrospect you could essentially also just use a curtain rail and then properly mount it onto the wall and make sure that it's firm and secure, and you could have basically the same setup without having to spend on an actual backdrop stand. Then something else that's very curious that I use as a background as well is this grey wall over here. This is actually part of the studio wall. I just wanted to paint the studio pitch black at the time that I just started out, but I didn't feel like paying 2 to 3 to 5,000 Rand on the actual like expensive paints that would like ensure, you know, enough coats to make sure that the actual studio does come out pitch black. So instead I went the cheapskate route. I got some PVC paint from Pick n Pay. It was like 300 bucks. I threw, I think, 8 bottles of black stainer into the paint to try and get it black. Needless to say, obviously that would never work. But I ended up with this color. I gave up and I was pretty happy with it. So I painted the studio out with this color, and eventually I got bored of the white background. I started using this gray background, and it has actually become one of my favorite pieces. A lot of my actors actually come to me for this gray wall because it just does expose so well and it makes your photos look so dynamic and different from everything else that's out there. This is not a color that exists, I made it, so that's what happened there. I call this my Woolworths wall because every photo that I take on here comes out looking like a Woolworths advert, so I'm super happy with it. Then moving on to my black background. This is actually just material I also got at Shamdor. So I would just literally prop it up onto the grey wall, and then I've got a third background in the space of, you know, 2 walls. So this backdrop, I think it's actually pongee lining. I think the entire material, it's also 3 meters by 7 meters, cost me like 80 bucks. This is cheap material. This is something you could definitely do and definitely afford. The only thing is I had to stitch the 2 pieces together to make it 3 meters wide because it is just 1.5 meters in diameter. But that is not a problem because I made a way. And for 80 bucks to having a complete new separate backdrop that you can use on your photos, definitely something I would do time and time again, and that I always encourage people to do. Don't spend too much. You can literally get away with it on the cheap, and I'm going to show you in a little bit just how expensive this cheap material can look. And these are my 3 backdrops. My clients, my actors love coming to me for it because I can offer them 3 different variations in such a small space. We don't have to leave the studio or anything like that, and you can have your 3 different options. So these are the 3 backdrops. I'm going to be shooting on it, and you'll see what my lighting techniques and my lighting setup are on the 3 with this face. This is the setup that I use for my white background. I would usually position just one light in front of the client, just off center, turning the softbox towards my client's face, tilting it up towards the middle of my client's face, and then just tilting it down a little bit to make sure that the light does travel to my client's feet as well. I would usually just use one light for the setup because I feel like the lighting is just a bit more dynamic. I feel like if I use 2 different lights from 2 different angles, that it tends to wash out my client's face a little bit, and then the photo just isn't as dynamic as it is with just using one light. I also position my client in the middle of the background, not too much far towards the back, because then you're going to get a shadow just like that. So I have a spot here that I call my sweet spot, and I ask my clients to stay in that. So this is the lighting setup. Let's see what it looks like. So here I am at my grey wall. The lighting setup is pretty much exactly the same as for the white backdrop. The only difference is that the light is ever so slightly closer towards the client because I do want a bit of a more dramatic feel against the wall, and it is angled a bit more diagonally so that you get a nice shadow on the backdrop there, as I tend to let my clients stand directly against the wall because you get some cool leading shots. Here I am standing in front of my black background. I've got the black backdrop propped against the wall there. I've got my 2 studio lights, and in this instance I would use 2 studio lights if you do have them. So I would use the 1 studio light from below facing upwards with my umbrella, and then I've got my 2nd studio light with the softbox propped up facing downwards so that you've got nice overlapping wrapping light, and that makes for a great beauty shot. I would usually just separate my client from the background, ask them to stand directly in front of the light that is in front of them on the floor, and that would get a nice beauty shot, shooting just between the 2 lights, getting a nice and crisp look and feel. This is what it looks like. As you can see, it's super simple. You don't need a setup that's going to cost you a literal arm and a leg. You can do things on the cheap in photography. It's one of the reasons I love it so much. And that's it for my studio. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want more tips and tricks, and click the bell to make sure that you get a notification when I do upload a new video. Take care of yourselves.